Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, Mysterious Voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels. Today it is Poetry Thursday, so I wanted to talk about some poetry of interest from an author author that I've talked about before. And today's poem is all about mother-daughter relationships. I am referring to The Youngest Daughter by Cathy Song. As I've said, I've talked about Cathy Song on this channel before, so if you want a little bit more in-depth exploration of who she is, go check out my video on Christmas Eve in the Poetry Thursday playlist for a little more information about her there. But she is a Korean Chinese writer who grew up in Hawaii. She wrote a number of books of poetry, and she frequently writes about family and things of that nature, which you saw in the Christmas Eve poem that I highlighted. But you also see that here. After all, it's in the name of the poem, The Youngest Daughter. Pretty high quality writer. I think that's why I've been kind of finding myself drawn back to them. So without further ado, let's talk about this poem. I will read it, do a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. The Youngest Daughter. The sky has been dark for many years. My skin has become as damp and pale as rice paper and feels the way mothers used to before the drying sun parched it out there in the fields. Lately, when I touch my eyelids, my hands react as if I had just touched something hot enough to burn. My skin, aspirin-colored, tingles with migraine. Mother has been massaging the left side of my face, especially in the evenings when the pain flares up. This morning, her breathing was graveled, her voice gruff with affection, when I wheeled her into the bath. She was in good humor, making jokes about her great breast, floating in the milky water like two walruses, flaccid and whiskered around the nipples. I scrubbed them with a sour taste in my mouth, thinking 6 children and an old man have sucked from these brown nipples. I was almost tender when I came to the blue bruises that freckle her body, places where she has been injecting insulin for 30 years. I soaped her slowly. She sighed deeply, her eyes closed. It seems it has always been like this, the two of us, in this sunless room, the splashing of the bathwater. In the afternoons, when she has rested, she prepares our ritual of tea and rice, garnished with a shred of gingered fish, a slice of pickled turnip, a token for my white body. We eat in the familiar silence. She knows I am not to be trusted, even now planning my escape. As I toast to her health with the tea she has poured, 1,000 cranes curtain the window, fly up in a sudden breeze. So that was The Youngest Daughter. In terms of analysis, there's a fair bit to talk about with this poem. In terms of narrative, I think it's easy to see what's going on in this poem. The mother is disabled a little bit in her old age, so she has to be bathed. The youngest daughter takes care of her a little bit. She feels a little hesitant to do that. Not hesitant, like it's not a fun job to do, so she doesn't want to do it. But after, taking care of her a little bit, she drinks tea with her mother, and there's a bit of a desire to leave, but also kind of peace, tranquility between the two. So one of the biggest themes that you see in this poem is that of family, specifically the relationship between the mother and the daughter. You get that instantly at the beginning of the poem with the title, The Youngest Daughter, of course. But you see like how these two relate to each other. They're very intimate, if a little bit frazzled relationship. You can see later in the second verse, they say, "Mother has been massaging the left side of my face, especially in the evenings when the pain flares up." So even though the mother is dealing with her own pain, she still takes the time to help her daughter and make things feel better for her, especially with the migraines that the daughter is feeling. I will note as a side note, in the second verse there is the line, "My skin aspirin colored tingles with migraine," and I just like that line. It's kind of stands out to me as I read this more and more. Like noting like it tingles with migraine, but also it's aspirin colored, noting the problem and potentially the solution in the same verse there, like in those two lines. I just think that's interesting. And then also you see the struggle of bathing the mother. It's not the most ideal job. I've bathed people before. It's not exactly something you're clamoring to do most of the time. Especially because taking a bath is kind of just a very intimate kind of moment for a human being in general. It's kind of like a solitary time, and here's someone scrubbing you clean. It's probably not good for the mother. It's definitely not fun for the daughter. But you also get allusions to their relationship in the present and the past in this poem later in it. Specifically, the narrator says, "I soaped her slowly. She sighed deeply, her eyes closed. It seems it has always been like this, the two of us in this sunless room, the splashing of the bathwater." Giving us a hint of their relationship now, but also alluding to the fact that the mother did this for the daughter when she was likely younger. That the daughter was taking a bath and the mother had to scrub her clean, as happens to most young children during bath time, and so you get a sense of the relationship and what it was and what it currently is, and how it's kind of frazzled. She says in the last verse, "We eat in the familiar silence. She knows I am not to be trusted even now, planning my escape." Showing how the daughter kind of doesn't want to be there. Maybe she has an obligation to for her mother in her old age, but also as the youngest daughter, it's kind of just placed upon her. Whereas the oldest daughters, the oldest family members, they have their own things to do. They're probably taking care of their own family. And so, there's that desire not to be there, but also she is there. That's a very significant part of the poem. Like if you could just abandon your parents if you want to. There's no rules to society. Someone else can take care of them. And yet she is here. That's not to say I would abandon my parents. One of them is dead. But it's something to note that the narrator in this poem doesn't have to be there, and yet she is. So kind of a struggle in that relationship, and really getting at how the people we love can often make life difficult for us, and the mother has her own struggles as well. Noting how she has to take and get showered in her old age, and how she's been injecting insulin for 30 years, the struggle that the mother has been going through. And then, lastly, in the first verse, you see that especially, where she says, "And feels the way mothers used to before the drying sun parched it out there in the fields." That's a great line right there, because it gives a good view into the mother's life, how she had to work the fields maybe to provide for her family. Was she being paid fair wages? Probably not. So there's a very big struggle that she's been dealing with needing to inject insulin because she's diabetic, having to get people give her bath, having to have that done for her, and who knows what else is going on. But she's still there for her daughter. So very interesting sort of exploration of that relationship in such a short amount of verses. Anyway, those are my thoughts on The Youngest Daughter by Cathy Song, a pretty high quality poem that I definitely recommend that you go and check out. I will put a link to it in the description. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this poet or this poem if they don't already know about it. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and frazzled family relationships. Farewell.